Welcome, folks. We are going to wait a few minutes as people come into the room, but hope that everyone is having a good afternoon or good morning, wherever you're coming from, and happy Friday. We'll just give a few more minutes for folks to join. All right, we're just going to give it a few more minutes for people to come in, and then we'll get started. Thank you for joining us for the storytelling workshop. We'll get started in just a minute. All right. Well, it is 12 or not 12, it's 1:03 for us in the Eastern, on the East Coast. And so I just want to welcome everyone to EEN's Storytelling Workshop. My name is Dr. Jessica Mormon. I am the Senior Director for Science and Policy here at the Evangelical Environmental Network. And we are just really thrilled to have you guys join us today to look at how can we talk about creation care with our friends and family, which depending on our context can be a tricky and difficult thing. And so we're really excited to host this workshop together in fellowship to share some tips and tricks, best practices from research, share some examples, and then get to work ourselves of really crafting out what is how has God put creation care, caring for the environment, taking action on climate, how has he put this on my heart, on each of our hearts, and how can we then share that personal story with our friends and family to help depoliticize this topic that can be at times controversial, but shouldn't be. And so before we get started, I want to open us up in prayer, and then I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Tori Goebel, who will lead us in our teaching on storytelling. So if you could all join me in prayer. Father God, I just thank you for this time that we can come together and focus on you, focus on the unique things that you have put on our hearts and the unique way that you have led us here. I just pray, Lord, that for your divine insight, that your spirit will speak to us during this time, that you will bless our conversations, that you will also calm our nerves if we have any nerves about doing this, and just really tap into your confidence, your assurance in both you as the creator and as well as our divine call to be stewards of your creation. We also come to you at a time of worry and strife and uncertainty in our nation, and I just pray your peace. I pray your peace over all of our communities and our families. I pray your healing over our nation as it relates to the pandemic, as it relates to the search for racial justice in our nation, and also with the economic burden as well as the climate burden that people are experiencing. We just place all of these things into your hand and entrust them to you. You say that your yoke is light, and we hand these things to you and take on your yoke today. Please bless this time and give us your insight, and in your holy name I pray. Amen. Amen. Well, it's my honor now to turn it over to Tori Goebel, our communications director, to lead us in our training today. Over to you, Tori.
Great. Thank you so much, Jessica, for that introduction and for kicking us off today. Welcome to everyone to our storytelling workshop. Thank you for giving us part of your Friday. Thank you for taking this leap. It shows us that you are ready to have these conversations and you want to learn how to be the best effective, faithful communicator. So thank you for being a part of this journey. So today, a highlight of what we're going to be spending our time doing, it won't just be me talking. We're going to talk about storytelling and messaging 101. What are those foundational things you need to know to have productive, good conversations about climate change? Not ones that are filled with strife and tension, but rather really good conversations where people can get to the heart of their values. We're going to introduce you to our new campaign and invite you to be a part of it. You'll see a sample video and have the chance to hear from other champions on this call and in the sample video. We're going to spend some time in journaling and reflection on Zoom together, but journaling as a group in our own homes. And then we're going to share with each other, have a chance to hear from one another about why you're so passionate about creation care and why you're on this call. So, why is this important? Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to talk about climate change with our friends? Well, according to the Yale program on climate change communication in partnership with the George Mason Climate Department, a record 73% of Americans think that global warming is happening. This study was just conducted in 2020. So right now, 73% of Americans, this is in their mind and they accept that climate change is happening. But only 64%, that's 6 in 10 folks, rarely or never discuss it with their friends and family. And 36% occasionally or often discuss it. So despite the fact that public acceptance of climate science is growing, people are not having these conversations with their friends and family. And in order to create action and meaningful change, we need to be talking about it. And what's worse, fewer than half of Americans perceive a social norm where they think their friends and family expect them to care and take action on global warming. That's an alarmingly low number, especially compared to the people who understand that it's happening. And recent findings from Yale also suggest that the strongest predictor of climate policy support among conservatives in particular is that their family or friends think it's important. So this data is telling us that climate change is widely understood, but not enough people are talking about it in their day-to-day lives. And I hope today that we start taking some steps to change that. What makes talking about climate change so hard? Why are so few people having these conversations? It's because it's related to our deepest commitments, identities, and values. This isn't a far off topic, but a really deeply personal one because it relates to our religious beliefs. Some people with different or incomplete theologies will think that talking about climate change and caring for creation goes against their religious beliefs. It's political. There's a misconception that only liberals or tree huggers have to care about this. We know that's not true, but people are holding on to these political identities and what they've been told, which makes it extremely painful and difficult to talk about. It's communal. This relates to our communities. We're seeing stories of wildfires out west being destroyed. It's a deeply emotional thing that impacts our families and communities around us. That makes it really difficult and full of emotion. It's not just a scientific issue. And it's economic, depending on your economic framework and things you have been told, different misinformation out there. This might contradict the economic systems and beliefs that you've come to care about. Because at root, climate acceptance or skepticism can be seen as an identity marker. People will feel sometimes that they are turning their back on a set of beliefs or communities by changing their mind on climate change. So where do we go wrong when we're talking about creation care and climate change? When we ignore the stakes. If we don't treat it like the serious and important thing that it is, then we're not communicating effectively. But at the same time, the best social science we have tells us that leading with science and statistics is not the way to change hearts and minds. So when you're having these conversations with people, throwing out numbers about the amount of greenhouse gas in the air and scientific facts, that's not the most effective way to communicate with them. And it's also important that we talk, that we listen more than we talk. Bad communicators will just talk, 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 and not take any time to listen. You're not going to make any inroads and have effective communication if you're not actually dialoguing with the person and listening to what they have to say. Because bad communication looks like failing to recognize the deeper values and commitments being communicated. When you're talking about climate change with someone, they're going to bring up things that are really important to them. Perhaps they've heard somewhere that taking climate action and closing coal plants is going to take away all their jobs and wreck the community. The values they're communicating are job stability, a healthy economy that can provide for their family. Listening to their values and things that are important to them are really important to having fruitful conversations. We also go wrong if we don't speak to people's identities. Instead of telling them, if let's say you're talking to a non-Christian who is unsure about creation care and climate change, if you're telling them that, hey, Christians should care about this, that's not their identity, and that's not going to resonate with them, which is why it's really important to listen to who they are and what matters to them. And most of all, we go wrong when we don't even try, when we put ourselves in that majority of Americans who are not even talking about climate change with friends and family. So what are some basics before you start having these conversations and thinking through why you care about this issue? First, be confident. You're an expert. Because we're not leading with stats and science, it's okay if you're not a scientist. If you are, great, but you are an expert in this relationship with your friend, your family member, a neighbor. And so be confident and communicate with conviction. No one's expecting you to be a policy expert, a scientist. You can speak from your own experience. And know your audience and communicate values and identities over facts and statistics. The social studies tell us that people are motivated by shared values and belonging, those things like speaking to someone's identity. And facts and figures are only persuasive to those who understand them, and most don't. Throwing out the latest scientific reports to people, like we said, is not going to change hearts and minds, and the chances are it might just confuse someone who doesn't have a scientific or mathematic background. It's not what's going to change hearts and minds, and it's just going to make the conversation much more difficult to have. So we've talked a lot about what not to do when you're communicating, but what are some things you should do? I want to talk about the power of I. This is one framework you can use when discussing creation care and climate change, or really any issue with someone who might have different views than you. And the first part is being a trusted messenger. You are someone's sister. You are someone's mother. You're their neighbor, coworker. You're someone they know. You're not some far off politician or celebrity, but you're rather a trusted person in their life. And that's because you have peer trust, you have things in common with them. It's also really important to form a worldview, letting people know you're not a typical environmentalist. In fact, you're a Christian, and that's why you care about this, because you've read the scriptures, and this is how the Spirit is speaking to you in this moment. So casting your worldview and showing them that you're not just out there hugging trees and the people they think of when they think people who care about the environment. Building some belief formation, saying, I believe in climate change. I believe that we are already seeing the impacts and that our neighbors are being hurt by it. I believe that our most vulnerable populations are being disproportionately impacted. Start telling them some things and give them some experiential evidence. You can say things like the wildfires burning out west, the fact that we have run out of alphabet and names for hurricanes, and it's just barely October. Start talking about the things you're seeing in community, not facts and statistics, but rather the things you're already experiencing. And making it here and now. Instead of saying, by 2050, this climate impact is going to happen, but rather what's happening right now. Because making it a distant impact makes it much more distant for the people you're talking about. Letting them know that this is something they can take action on now and is impacting people now is a great way to have these conversations. Adding some emotional engagement. I feel distressed by what is happening. I feel excited to take action and like I'm called to take action. Bringing emotions in instead of science is a much better way to have these conversations with people. Share some motivation, why you're doing things. I'm doing this because I want a healthier world for my grandchildren. I'm doing this because my town is already struggling with extreme flooding. And make it normal, create that social norm for people. Let them know what you're doing, and that invites them in and encourages them to do something too. This isn't something that the weird hippies are only doing, but rather this is something normal that people are doing in society to take action, no matter who you are. And building trust building, saying it's not easy, or something like, I didn't always care about climate change. I wasn't having these conversations. And making it realistic really helps people. And offering some rewards, how great it feels to take climate action, the community you found, maybe with EN or others you know who are taking care of creation. Show them that this isn't all just about sacrifice and loss, but rather all of the great things you could gain. And I really want to reiterate that you are the trusted messenger. What does a good trusted messenger look like? They're visible, they're like us. Like I said, they're not a Hollywood celebrity that we can't relate to. They're not some really rich, fancy business owner somewhere else. And we also want to know that there's someone who's concerned about us. They're not looking out for their own self-interest, but rather our community. There's someone who's knowledgeable, someone they can trust, and that's someone like you in your community. And they want someone who's honest. So I just want to drive home that you have the ability to be confident and have these conversations because you are the trusted messenger for your community. Perhaps I can't come in and talk to your family, your group of friends, because they'll say, who is this girl living in Massachusetts? I don't know her at all. That's why you're the best person to have this conversation, and why we're so glad you're on this workshop today. So what does this look like? It looks like affirming identities, letting them know that creation care relates to what people love and who they are in their communities. If people talk about how they really love being involved in a church group, say like, that's great. Instead of saying, oh, leave church to care about creation care, rather affirming what they're telling you in their conversations. There's someone who's really concerned about their family. You are a family person. And as a family person, you have some reason to act on climate. And that's where it comes into connecting it to what they care about. And that comes from listening more than you're talking and connecting those to creation care. Letting them know that other people just like them are concerned. You can say, oh, I met someone in this EN workshop, or I have a neighbor who is also a Christian and taking action. Letting them know that they're not going to be alone in this journey, but rather people just like them are taking action. Not just the Democrats they see on TV, the celebrities telling them to recycle, but rather people just like them in their own community. And letting them know that there is belonging on the other side. You can connect how you see climate action relating to evangelism and invite them along to an EN event. You can start a book club, letting them know that there's community on the other side of this instead of loss. And painting a hopeful picture. The world can become more how you want it to be. Let's say someone's really concerned about jobs in their local economy. You can let them know that clean energy employs more people. The job growth potential is huge. You can talk about how much cleaner the air is going to be. You want a healthy future for your children. Think about cleaner air, cleaner water. Inspiring them with a hopeful vision will really help drive your message home. You might be wondering, what about people who are really aggressive and angry? What about people who are vehement climate deniers, etc.? When you're having a conversation that's really full of strife, what should you do? The first thing is to stay calm. You don't need to match their stress level, their anger. We don't want climate change communication and talking about creation care to become a fight. So there's no need to match their anger or anxiety, whatever they're expressing to you. And be curious. This is where listening comes in. What are they trying to communicate to you? Ask them why they feel this way, where they got these ideas from. And get personal. Share the power of I. Talk about what you're seeing, the experiences you're having, why you care about this as a Christian. It's much harder to attack and question your own personal story as opposed to statistics and questioning peer-reviewed studies. You'll just go down a rabbit trail, but rather keeping it personal and talking about your own life is a much more fruitful way to have these conversations. And don't get sidetracked. Always bring it back to your personal experience and core motivation for your work. The things you're seeing in your own community, what you're studying about and learning in church and different book clubs, and how that motivates you to take action. And be ready to recognize red herrings, people bringing up different political events, questioning climate change science methodology. And it's okay to walk away from these conversations. We don't want you to stay stuck in these conversations. So it's okay to walk away and not get sidetracked by arguments. So by now, perhaps you're wondering, now what? What do I do with this information? I've learned some basics about storytelling. There's always more to say and more to practice, but what now? Well, we're launching a new campaign to collect 50 recorded stories before the November election from people just like you. And I'll show you a sample of what this looks like. And that's because, as we've learned, stories have the power to change hearts and minds. EEN can publish endless blogs about policy and science, things happening in DC and what we're doing here, but personal stories from you are what's really going to impact your community and hopefully get those statistics up of the number of people who are actually talking about this with their loved ones. Once you record your story and post it, which will show you how, it's great to share on your social media and start having these conversations without having to pick up the phone, starting a conversation at the Thanksgiving table, but rather a really natural way to raise awareness. It's also a way to reach many people. I know I'm friends with people on Facebook. I have Twitter followers who I would not normally engage with in regular life. So it's a great way to reach those people. It also normalizes creation care and climate action as something that Christians care about. You may have had conversations with people who said, oh, I didn't know Christians were taking action on this issue. Well, this is a really great way to start creating that normalization of Christians caring for creation and help them discover that others also care. Maybe you're friends with someone who cares about this but isn't sure what action steps to take, where to get plugged in. So sharing your story is a really good way to do that. So now I would love to watch this sample video. I want to make sure you can hear it. Okay.
Paul Douglas here. Counting the screens, it's never enough screens. Look, I'm on the board of EEN, Evangelical Environmental Network. I'm a meteorologist from Penn State. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm on my 7th weather tech business. And I'm also a dad and a new grandfather. I have an 8-month-old grandson, Jordan, who is the love of my life. Talk about the ultimate blessing. We've all been blessed, and with great blessings come great responsibilities. As a Christian, I take Genesis seriously. God made us in his self-image. It says so in the Bible. He gave us big, beautiful brains, the ability to think clearly and logically and improve our lives, and the good sense not to foul our nest. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. We honor the Creator when we protect his creation and defend his children. We are called to be stewards. Luke 16:2. Be a good steward in everything that you do. And yes, something my dad taught me growing up, actions have consequences. You know, we've had a great ride the past couple of centuries, but it's come at the expense of the atmosphere specifically. Carbon pollution now spiking at levels we've never seen before. My eyes are wide open. It was the weather, the crazy weather, that got me to realize 20 years ago that something was up. I connected the dots, came to the realization that the climate scientists probably right. And I have to say, there's nothing inherently liberal about acknowledging reality. And that's exactly what we're doing right now, acknowledging reality. Whether it comes to the virus, whether it comes to racial injustice, or yes, a rapidly changing climate. At the end of the day, though, I'm optimistic for 2 reasons. Young people aren't as cynical or skeptical, in many cases, as their parents or grandparents. And the drop in price for renewables, at some point, solar, wind, biofuels, becomes a no-brainer. It's cheaper. People may do the right thing because it's going to save them money. So I'm optimistic long-term. In the short term, there will be more bumps. The situation isn't hopeless. We aren't helpless. Be a part of EEN. We need you.
So that was Paul. He's on our board. I especially like this video for a few reasons. He's really personable. He's himself. He's a meteorologist. He's showing people his studio. He's talking about what he reads in Genesis, things he's heard from his father. He's relating it to his faith. In the end, he casted a really hopeful vision, but he was also realistic. He didn't say, yeah, it's going to be awesome and there's not going to be no bumps in the road, but rather there's going to be bumps in the road, but we're going to save money. We're going to have a healthier future. He ended it with a really great vision for what can happen and invited people into the movement by being a part of EEN. So now we would like to invite you to have this be your turn to share your story. And I just want to say, I know this is new and potentially awkward for you. Paul filmed that himself on his phone, just holding it up. This isn't a high production value thing, but it's still you being vulnerable and sharing your story and uploading it for the world. So we know this is new and potentially awkward, but as we've learned, this kind of thing is extremely impactful. Paul is speaking to a Christian audience. He was letting them know that caring for God's creation is not a liberal thing. In his community, there's many conservatives. So he's speaking to his audience in a way only Paul can. And so this is extremely impactful because we know people are not talking about climate change with their friends and family. And so this is really meaningful to upload, for people to say, oh, who's a part of EN, and also for you to share with your circles and let them know how serious you are about that. So later on, we'll encourage you to head to tribute.co/EN on your phone or computer. This is what it's going to look like. You can film directly on the site, or you can just use your regular camera roll on your phone. That's my preferred method. And you upload it. This is the first picture here is what the mobile site looks like. If you're doing this from a computer, that record upload button I've circled is going to be on the left side, kind of in the middle of the page. You hit record and upload. You enter just your name and your email, very simple information. And then you'll get this screen right here, the second picture, with some prompts. First, we'll ask you to introduce yourself, share why you care about creation and the climate crisis, what you've been doing in response, and then your hope for the future. So you just hit that upload button and it'll take a few minutes to upload, and then you won't see it on the page right away. And then you'll be on a page with, there's already about 6, I believe, last time I checked, other Christians who are sharing their own story. And everyone's is going to be different and unique. And I think that's what makes this campaign so cool. So now we're going to do a little bit of time in journaling. I will leave this prompt up and we will call you back in about 10 minutes or so, maybe a little less. I have to check the time. And so just get out pen and paper, your phone, Microsoft Word, however you like to take notes, and prepare these questions. And again, we understand this is going to take way more time than we've scheduled for today, but this is to get the juices flowing and start the process of reflecting on these questions. So within a few weeks, you'll be ready to upload your video. So get out your pens and paper and start writing. Be sure to introduce yourself in your own journaling prompts, especially when you do the video, and then just start answering these 3 questions, because then we're going to go to breakout rooms and have a chance to share them with each other. And again, we don't expect this to be a perfectly polished speech or presentation, but rather a way to 1, get to know each other, and 2, start getting comfortable practicing having these conversations in a safe space with fellow believers. So happy journaling. I'll be here in the chat if you have questions, but just take a few moments to start thinking through these ideas, and I'll call you back when it's time. Hey folks, we're going to do 2 more minutes of journaling, so just want to give you a heads up to start wrapping up your thoughts, and we'll come back at 1:40. All right, everyone, we will stop journaling now and move on to the next phase of our workshop. I'll just reiterate that this is likely only the beginning of your journaling and thinking through this and getting ready to film. So that is okay. We just want this to be a start and a chance to all be in community on Zoom journaling together like a small group. So now we're going to head to breakout rooms. I believe, Jessica, that we have a facilitator for timekeeping already. So we're just going to have folks in there keeping time so everyone has a chance to share. We're going to suggest 5 minutes a person. That is a firm timeline. If it takes less time, that's okay. But spend about 2 minutes sharing your story and journaling through it. And then about 3 minutes group feedback. That part's a little flexible, but that's our suggested format. For the group to just offer encouragement and highlight what was compelling, and then suggestions to make the story even more effective. We also tell this to groups that to save time and just embrace diving in, to not say, oh, I haven't worked through this a lot, and oh, there's things I want to work on, I'm not sure about this. Just dive in and share what you have. We're all on the same boat in the workshop. So feel free to just dive in with what you've journaled and what you feel comfortable sharing, and welcome feedback. Because again, we're going to be following up and encouraging folks to post on our tribute page. So Jessica will send us to breakout rooms now. And she put the questions and information in the chat box for folks. Thanks, Jessica.
The other folks would have gotten, or probably wrapping up and would have just seen the message to wrap up. So.
Thanks for leading us.
Oh, absolutely. And if there was more time, I would have shared my story as well.
You can start. We might have time. Let's hear
Yeah,
it.
that's right. That's right. I could just get going right now while everyone is joining. Yeah. Oh.
Too late.
Too late. All right. Thank you, everyone, as you're heading back in. I know that it was a bit abrupt I forgot to send the warning message to everyone. So you had the quick 60 seconds, but we wanted to gather back here in small group or in large group to answer any questions that you guys might have. So I'm going to turn it back to Tori to lead us in a time of Q&A.
Yeah, so we didn't do questions after the presentation. That was sort of intentional to kind of stay focused on your own story, but I would love questions from the crowd. Feel free to use the chat box if that's what you're more comfortable with, or you could just take yourself off mute since it's a smaller group. Oh, you're on mute.
Now that all of us have gotten so accustomed to using Zoom, I think it would be really nice as a follow-up to this if we could come back together and talk about our success or lack of success in doing this, and what stumbling blocks we have that we could brainstorm with others how to overcome those stumbling blocks.
I love that suggestion.
Yeah, we'll work to get that on the calendar. I like that idea, just to invite registrants back if they'd like. Thanks for offering that. Any other questions or thoughts as we come up to 2 o'clock?
I'm looking forward to recording and posting to that website. I looked at some of the other ones earlier, and very encouraging.
Can you give that website address again?
Yes, I'm typing it in now. It's tribute.co/EEN. So that was one of my closing announcements, is definitely do check out the website to watch other people's stories. We've crafted these 3 core questions of, why do you care about this as a Christian? What are you doing? And what's your prayer? Those do fall into those principles we talked about, and most people will hit those really important points just by answering those 3 questions. And you'll see on the tribute page, everyone does that differently. We recommend to aim for about 2 to 5 minutes in your video. You'll see some people really love to talk, and we have a 13-minute video. So feel free to check the short ones out, whichever ones you want, the 13-minute one, and see how other people are engaging with this to help you with your brainstorming and just to hear from other people. I think I've been encouraged today hearing from folks. And so Monday, I'm going to send out a follow-up email with the recording of this, with my PowerPoint slides for those who would like it, and then the link to the website as well, and encouragement to upload. And we do plan on staying in touch, and I will look into scheduling a follow-up too with that great suggestion. So Monday, more things will be coming, but definitely do check out tribute.co. I don't know why it's not .com/EEN. We're coming up on the hour, but I don't want to shut down any questions folks may have. Well, hearing none, I think we can go for the day and enjoy our Friday. Again, I'm so thankful for everyone taking some time out of your day to start this journey of learning how to talk about creation care. Feel free to email me anytime. My email is just Tori, T-O-R-I, creationcare.org, and you'll be getting an email from me Monday. So feel free to reach out with questions you think of. And I look forward to continuing this conversation with everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for sharing your stories.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.